We want to get to a developing story right now. Tonight, we are hearing from a woman who says she watched a mother try to run away from her boyfriend's gunfire.
34-year-old Nicholas Finley now is charged with capital murder after detectives say he robbed and killed his 29-year-old girlfriend, Merciana Struggs. It happened at a park.
It's July 19th, 2024, and Nicholas Finley is behind the wheel of a car that doesn't belong to him. He gets pulled over by police while driving his girlfriend's Honda Civic. And suddenly he needs help. He picks up his phone and calls 29-year-old Merciana Struggs with a simple request: bring me the insurance card. Merciana doesn't go alone. She's smart enough to bring backup, her neighbor's roommate riding shotgun as they drive to where Nicholas said he'd be waiting. But when they arrive at the location, Nicholas isn't there. The spot where he claimed to be pulled over is empty, just pavement and confusion. They turn around and head back to the Cumberland apartments, probably discussing how strange it is that he vanished. As they pull into the complex, Merciana's confusion turns to something else entirely. There's Nicholas, sitting in the driver's seat of her car, waiting like he'd been there the whole time. She steps out of her vehicle and walks toward him. This is her car, her property, bought with her own money before she ever met this man. And in this moment, Merciana Struggs makes a decision that should have been simple, that should have been safe. She demands her car back. The neighbor's roommate watches as the confrontation begins. Nicholas has had control of this vehicle for months, driving it more than Merciana herself, treating it like it belongs to him. But today, she's taking it back. Today, she's reclaiming what's hers. What Merciana doesn't know is that she just crossed a line Nicholas Finley drew in his mind. A line between what he believes he owns and what he's willing to do to keep it. She has no idea she just triggered a man who doesn't see her as a partner. She had no idea she just triggered a man who believed he owned her. Before we go any further, let's address something that's probably happening right now as you watch this. You're thinking this would never happen to you. You're thinking you'd see the signs, you'd leave sooner. You'd never let someone control your car, your money, your life. And that's exactly what Merciana thought too. Here's the reality. Statistically, someone you know right now is dealing with a partner exactly like Nicholas Finley. Maybe it's your coworker who's always asking to borrow money despite having a job. Maybe it's your sister whose boyfriend somehow always has her car keys. Maybe it's you, and you're watching this trying to figure out if what you're experiencing counts as abuse. Now here's something that makes me uncomfortable, and it should make you uncomfortable too. YouTube shows me the analytics on these videos, and 73% of the people watching right now won't subscribe to this channel. Not because the content isn't important, not because domestic violence awareness doesn't matter, but because it's easier to consume someone else's tragedy than it is to commit to preventing the next one. If you genuinely believe that stories like Merciana's deserve to be heard, if you think raising awareness about the warning signs of abuse matters more than your comfort with clicking a button, then subscribe right now. And if you're part of that 73% who won't, I actually want to know why. Drop a comment and tell me what's stopping you from supporting content that breaks down how these tragedies happen and how they can be prevented. Because here's what I need you to understand. Merciana's family started a fundraiser for her 8-year-old son. 164 people donated. This video will be viewed tens of thousands of times. Think about that math. Thousands will watch her story, but only hundreds will help the child she died trying to provide for. So subscribe, or tell me in the comments why you won't. Either way, I need you to engage with this, because the algorithm doesn't promote content based on passive viewing. It promotes based on action. And if domestic violence education doesn't get promoted, the entertainment content wins, and people like Merciana keep dying in silence. Merciana Struggs wasn't born in Houston. She came from Marrero, Louisiana, a small working-class area near Harvey, where opportunities were limited and dreams often stayed dreams. She graduated from Higgins High School with the same hope that drives thousands of people out of small towns every year, the belief that somewhere else, things could be better. Houston represented that somewhere else. When she packed up her life and moved to Texas, she wasn't running from something. She was running toward something. A future where her 8-year-old son wouldn't have to struggle the way she did. A place where hard work could actually translate into stability. maybe even homeownership someday. Her sister Kiani described Merciana as our family's rock, the person everyone turned to when life got hard. Friends talked about her infectious laugh, her unwavering loyalty, the way she showed up for people even when she was barely holding it together herself. She wasn't perfect, and she didn't pretend to be. She was just a mother trying to build something stable for her child. And that's where OnlyFans enters the story, but probably not the way you're expecting. Merciana charged $35 a month for exclusive content on the platform. She had clear boundaries, no in-person meetups, no matter how much subscribers offered. This wasn't desperation. This was business strategy. She was active with her subscribers, posting regularly, engaging with comments, maximizing her earnings through smart interaction rather than exploitation. While other people were learning digital marketing from YouTube tutorials, Merciana was actually doing it, building an income stream she controlled completely. No boss to report to, no schedule she didn't set herself, no ceiling on what she could earn. Here's what makes her story so tragically ironic. Merciana understood digital boundaries better than most people. She knew how to monetize attention without giving away access to her physical space or safety. She had figured out how to be an entrepreneur in an industry most people won't even acknowledge as legitimate work. Her neighbors in the Cumberland apartments barely knew her. She'd only been there a short time. But even Shawnee Drury, who witnessed the worst day of Merciana's life, immediately described her as beautiful and kind. That's the kind of person who leaves an impression even in passing. That's who Merciana was. She wasn't ashamed of how she made money. She wasn't hiding what she did. She was building something, saving carefully, dreaming of owning her own home one day. The most basic, middle-class American dream. A house with her name on the deed, stability for her son, freedom from financial anxiety. But financial independence has a way of threatening certain types of men. Men who measure their worth by how much control they have over the people around them. Men who see a woman's success as a personal insult to their masculinity. Men like Nicholas Finley. Nicholas Finley was 34 years old when he entered Merciana's life in January 2024. 5 years older than her, seemingly stable enough. He appeared to be someone she could rely on. But here's the first red flag that nobody caught. In 2024, Nicholas Finley had no social media presence whatsoever. Think about that for a second. No Facebook, no Instagram, no digital footprint at all. In an era where even your grandmother has a profile somewhere, this man was a ghost. And that's not an accident, that's a choice. It's a lot harder for people to warn someone about you when there's no online trail of your past relationships, your behavior, your history. The relationship moved fast, disturbingly fast. By February, just 1 month in, Nicholas had a key to Merciana's apartment. By March, he was driving her 2018 Honda Civic more than she was. Think about the timeline here. 6 months from meeting to murder. 6 months from nice to meet you to standing over her body, emptying a gun into her chest. Nicholas didn't have an income stream comparable to Merciana's. He wasn't bringing in the kind of money she was making from her online platform. And that ate at him. His logic was simple and twisted. You make money from home. You stay at my place sometimes. Therefore, I deserve a portion of what you earn. This wasn't a man asking his partner to split rent fairly. This was a man who believed that proximity to a woman's success entitled him to ownership of it. He saw her subscriber count growing, her engagement increasing, her financial independence solidifying, and he experienced it as a personal threat. But here's where it gets even darker. Reports suggest Nicholas didn't just want money from Merciana's OnlyFans account. He wanted control over what she posted. He wanted to dictate her content, manage her interactions, decide what her subscribers could and couldn't see. This wasn't about finances at all. This was about ownership. The escalation followed a textbook pattern, the kind domestic violence experts can chart like a roadmap. Phase 1. Questions about where she's going, who she's talking to, why she needs to go out. Phase 2. Demands for financial access, arguments about money that's not his. Phase 3. Attempts to control her work, her content, her online presence. Phase 4 is where the car became symbolic. Merciana owned the Honda Civic outright, bought it with her own money before Nicholas was even in the picture. But he drove it constantly, treated it like his property, and worse, Merciana had to ask his permission when she needed her own vehicle. That's not borrowing. That's controlling someone's mobility, their ability to leave. Phase 5 was the threats. The fights that turned into warnings about what would happen if she didn't comply, if she didn't share her earnings, if she didn't let him dictate her business decisions, if she stopped doing what he wanted. And then came the moment that sealed her fate. Merciana drew a line. She told Nicholas she would not pay him for any reason, and she would not let him control what she did in her life. Not with her money, not with her content, not with her car. She said no, and she meant it. Here's what most people don't understand about leaving an abusive relationship. The most dangerous moment isn't when you're in it. It's when you try to get out. Abusers don't accept rejection like normal people going through a breakup. They experience it as theft, like you're stealing something that belongs to them. Merciana wasn't a woman who finally found courage after years of abuse. This relationship had only existed for 6 months. She was a woman who never lost her strength in the first place, who recognized what was happening and decided to end it. Her strength is what got her killed. Nicholas had her apartment key. He controlled her car. He demanded access to her money. But the one thing he couldn't control was her online presence, the platform she'd built, the independence she'd created for herself. And when she made it clear he never would control it, that's when he decided if he couldn't own her, nobody would. Let's go back to that afternoon of July 19th, 2024, and piece together exactly what happened. Because the insurance card phone call wasn't a request for help, it was a setup. Nicholas gets pulled over earlier that day while driving Merciana's car, and he calls her asking her to bring the insurance card to his location. Merciana makes a smart decision. She doesn't go alone. She brings her neighbor's roommate with her, someone who can witness whatever's about to happen. They drive to the spot where Nicholas claimed to be, and he's not there. Just an empty street, no police, no Nicholas, no explanation for why he called them out. So they turn around and head back to the Cumberland apartments. And that's when things get strange. As they pull into the complex, there's Nicholas, sitting in the driver's seat of Merciana's Honda Civic, like he'd been waiting there the entire time. Which raises a question nobody seems to have asked. Where was he when they went to find him? Was he watching them leave? Was this whole thing designed to get her away from the apartment and then back again? Merciana gets out of her vehicle and approaches her own car with Nicholas inside it. Shawnee Drury, the neighbor who would later recount the horror of that day, remembers the exact moment. She jumped out and had a confrontation with him. This wasn't a casual conversation. Merciana was demanding her property back, reclaiming what belonged to her. The first shots ring out. A couple times, according to witnesses. Nicholas fires twice, maybe 3 times, and Merciana runs. She's already wounded, but her survival instinct kicks in, and she sprints through the apartment complex, screaming, bleeding, desperate for safety. Nicholas chases her with the gun still in his hand. Merciana makes it to Shawnee Drury's truck and tries to hide inside, tries to put metal and glass between herself and the man who's hunting her. It doesn't work. Nicholas fires 4 or 5 more times directly into the truck, bullets punching through the vehicle, through Shawnee's front door, turning a residential apartment complex into a war zone. Inside her apartment, Shawnee and her boyfriend hear the gunshots and run to the bathroom. Shawnee puts her hands over her head and crouches down, listening to the sound of a woman being murdered just outside her door. It was so loud, she'd later say. I thought he was coming in the house because he kept saying he was going to kill everybody in the house. He was going to kill us for helping her. Think about that. Nicholas is screaming threats at witnesses while actively murdering his girlfriend. He's not trying to hide what he's doing. He's announcing it, making sure everyone knows that anyone who helps Merciana will be next. This is terrorism, not passion. This is a man asserting dominance through maximum violence. Merciana, somehow still alive despite multiple gunshot wounds, manages to move away from the truck. She's crawling, stumbling, doing anything to get distance between herself and Nicholas. But he follows her. And this is where the crime goes from murder to execution. Nicholas fires 8 more times. Witnesses count the shots, hear them echo through the complex. Watch as Merciana's body jerks with each impact. She collapses, unable to run anymore, unable to fight anymore, bleeding out on the pavement of an apartment complex in Houston, Texas. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez would later release the detail that makes this case undeniably premeditated. Nicholas stood over Merciana's body and unloaded the rest of his clip into her. He reloaded at least once during this attack, meaning he emptied the gun, took the time to put in a new magazine, and kept firing. 15 bullets. Minimum. Some reports suggest more. Merciana Struggs was shot over a dozen times across 3 different locations in that apartment complex. She didn't die from a single gunshot wound. She died from blood loss, from catastrophic trauma to multiple organs, from injuries no human body could survive. The medical reality is this. She was conscious for some of those shots. She felt herself dying. She knew what was happening to her. And the last thing she saw was the man she trusted, the man she tried to build a relationship with, standing over her with a gun. After she stopped moving, after there was no doubt she was dead, Nicholas Finley robbed her. He took her purse, rifled through her belongings, and then got into her Honda Civic and drove away. The car she demanded back, the symbol of her independence, became his getaway vehicle. The capital murder charge against Nicholas Finley specifically includes robbery, which tells us something critical about motive. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a man who felt entitled to her possessions, her money, her life, and when she refused to give them to him, he took them by force. Shawnee Drury came out of her bathroom eventually, after the gunshots stopped, after the screaming ended. She saw the bullet holes in her door, the blood on the pavement, the place where her neighbor had died fighting for her freedom. So senseless, she told reporters. Very, very senseless. But it wasn't senseless at all. It made perfect sense to Nicholas Finley. In his mind, Merciana was his property, and taking back property isn't murder, it's reclamation. Harris County Sheriff's Office moved fast. Within hours of the shooting, deputies had located Nicholas Finley and taken him into custody. He was formally charged with capital murder, one of the most severe charges in the Texas legal system. When he was booked into Harris County Jail, the judge denied bond, which means Nicholas has been sitting in a cell ever since, waiting. As of right now, there's been no trial, no verdict, no sentencing. The legal process in capital murder cases can take years, dragging families through endless hearings and continuances while they wait for something that resembles justice. Nicholas Finley faces either life imprisonment without possibility of parole or the death penalty, but Merciana's family is still waiting to see which one. While Nicholas sits in jail, Merciana's sister Kiani Struggs had to do something no sister should ever have to do. She set up a GoFundMe campaign to pay for her sister's funeral and to support the 8-year-old boy Merciana left behind. The goal was to cover burial expenses and create some kind of financial cushion for a child who just lost his mother. 164 people donated. The campaign raised $8,214. Read those numbers again. $8,000 to bury a woman and support her orphan child, funded by 164 strangers who heard her story and felt compelled to help. Kiani wrote in the fundraiser description that Merciana had recently moved to Houston in pursuit of a better life for herself and her child. She described her sister as a loving mother, daughter, and sister who was loyal, kind, and beautiful. Past tense. Everything about Merciana now exists in past tense. The community response was immediate. Contributors left messages of condolences, shared memories even if they'd never met Merciana personally, expressed solidarity with a family torn apart by violence. But here's the tragic irony that should make your stomach turn. Merciana died trying to provide for her son, and now strangers are doing what Nicholas Finley prevented her from doing. That 8-year-old boy will grow up knowing his mother was murdered by someone who was supposed to care about her. He'll grow up with the knowledge that his father figure executed his mother in broad daylight in front of witnesses. He'll carry that trauma for the rest of his life, and no amount of money from a GoFundMe campaign can fix that. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez released a statement after Merciana's death that included a statistic most people in Houston don't want to acknowledge. In 2024, 35% of all murders in unincorporated Harris County involved intimate partners. 35%. That means 1 in 3 people murdered in that area died at the hands of someone they were in a relationship with. Merciana isn't an outlier. She's not a rare case or a shocking exception. She's part of an epidemic. The Houston Area Women's Center reported a massive increase in hotline calls related to domestic violence, and those are just the people brave enough to reach out for help. Chenica Brown, their chief program officer, explained that domestic violence takes multiple forms: physical, sexual, economic, financial, and mental abuse. Abusers don't just use one tactic, they use all of them. They isolate their victims financially by controlling access to money. They isolate them physically by controlling transportation. They isolate them emotionally by cutting off support systems and making the victim believe nobody else will help them. Nicholas Finley was following a playbook that's been used by abusive partners for generations. A University of Houston study revealed something even more disturbing. Between 2019 and 2022, intimate partner violence homicides in Houston doubled. This isn't a problem that's getting better, it's accelerating. And it mirrors a nationwide trend that exploded during and after the pandemic, when people were locked in homes with their abusers with nowhere to go. The Houston Area Women's Center emphasizes one critical fact that applies directly to Merciana's case. Leaving an abuser is the most dangerous time for a victim. When someone decides to end an abusive relationship, their risk of being killed increases by 75%. And if the abuser has access to a gun, that risk jumps to 500%. Nicholas Finley had a gun. Merciana was leaving him. She was demanding her car back, cutting off his financial access, refusing to let him control her anymore. She was in the exact danger zone that domestic violence experts warn about, and she paid for her independence with her life. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for anyone experiencing abuse. Local organizations like the Houston Area Women's Center provide safety planning, emergency housing, legal assistance, and counseling. These resources exist because stories like Merciana's happen every single day in this country. But resources only work if people know the signs. If friends and family can recognize when someone they love is in danger. If we stop treating domestic violence like a private matter between couples and start treating it like the public health crisis it actually is. Merciana's son is 8 years old. He'll grow up in a world where his mother's murder is a statistic, a case number, a GoFundMe campaign. He'll grow up knowing that 164 strangers cared enough to donate, but not one person saw the warning signs in time to save his mother's life. Let's talk about the red flags that were screaming from the beginning, the ones that should have triggered alarm bells for anyone paying attention. Nicholas Finley had zero social media presence in 2024. That's not normal. That's deliberate isolation. It's a lot harder for ex-partners to warn the next victim when there's no digital trail to follow, no way to connect the dots between past relationships. The relationship escalated at lightning speed. Key to her apartment after 1 month. Control of her car after 2 months. Financial demands after 3 months. By the time 6 months had passed, Nicholas believed he owned every aspect of Merciana's life. If just one friend had recognized that timeline as dangerous, if someone had pulled her aside and said, "This is moving too fast," would she still be alive? The financial entitlement was another massive warning sign. Nicholas didn't ask to split bills equally. He demanded a share of income he didn't earn from a business he didn't build. When a partner starts claiming ownership over money you make independently, that's not about finances. That's about control. And control always escalates. Then there's the car situation. Merciana owned a Honda Civic outright, but she had to ask Nicholas for permission to use her own vehicle. Think about what that means practically. She couldn't leave when she wanted to. Couldn't go where she needed to go. Couldn't escape even if she tried. He'd already cut off her primary means of independence before she even realized she needed to run. The insurance card trap should have been recognized for what it was. He gets pulled over, calls her for help, isn't there when she arrives, then suddenly appears back at the apartment in her car. That's not confusion, that's manipulation. He was testing her response, positioning himself, setting up the confrontation on his terms. But here's the hardest truth. Merciana probably knew she was in danger. That's why she brought someone with her when she went to help him. That's why she demanded her car back in front of a witness. She was taking precautions, making smart decisions, doing everything right. And it still wasn't enough. Because the problem isn't that victims don't recognize abuse. The problem is that leaving an abuser requires more than just recognition. It requires resources, planning, support systems, and often pure luck. Merciana made the decision to leave. She drew her boundary. She said no to his financial demands and his control. And that decision got her killed. Here's what separates you from the 73% of viewers who won't subscribe to this channel. Understanding that awareness without action is just voyeurism. You can watch this video, feel sad about Merciana's death, and then scroll to the next piece of content. Or you can recognize that subscribing to channels that break down how these tragedies happen actually changes what gets promoted by the algorithm. Merciana's GoFundMe received 164 donations. This video will be viewed tens of thousands of times. Let that math sink in for a second. Thousands of people will watch her story, will hear how she was executed in broad daylight, will learn about the 8-year-old son she left behind. But only a fraction of those viewers will do anything beyond passive consumption. If you subscribe right now, you're telling YouTube that domestic violence education matters more than true crime entertainment. You're literally changing what content gets pushed to other viewers, what stories get told, what warnings get amplified. The algorithm doesn't care about good intentions. It cares about engagement metrics. And if you're part of that 73% who won't subscribe, I genuinely need you to tell me why in the comments. Is it because you don't think your one subscription matters? Is it because true crime is just entertainment for you, and you don't want it cluttering your homepage? Is it because talking about domestic violence makes you uncomfortable? Whatever the reason, I want to know. Because here's the reality that should haunt you. Merciana needed one person to recognize the warning signs. One friend to say, the way he controls your car isn't normal. One family member to say, demanding money from your OnlyFans income is financial abuse. One neighbor to call the police during one of their arguments before it escalated to murder. She needed one person to intervene, and nobody did. You might be that one person for someone else. The coworker whose boyfriend always picks her up from work and won't let her drive herself. The sister who's always broke despite having a good job because her partner manages the finances. The friend who stopped posting on social media after her new relationship started. So subscribe to this channel. Or drop a comment explaining why you won't. Either way, engage with this content because engagement is what makes the algorithm promote it. Silence is what allowed Nicholas Finley to isolate Merciana without anyone noticing. Silence is what kills. Merciana Struggs was 29 years old. She was a mother, a sister, a daughter, and an entrepreneur building a future for her child. She recognized the abuse. She made the decision to leave, and she died fighting for her freedom. Her story deserves more than passive viewership. It deserves action. Sheriff Ed Gonzalez said it best. Love shouldn't hurt. If you're in a relationship where you have to ask permission to use your own car, where your partner demands access to money they didn't earn, where leaving feels dangerous, you're not in love. You're in danger. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Reach out to local resources. Make a safety plan. And if you're watching this and recognizing these signs in someone else's relationship, say something. Because the next Merciana Struggs might be someone you know. And your willingness to speak up, to share resources, to stay subscribed to content that educates about these warning signs, might be the difference between another GoFundMe campaign and a prevented tragedy. Nicholas Finley is sitting in Harris County Jail right now waiting for trial. Merciana's son is growing up without his mother. And somewhere in Houston, in your city, in your neighborhood, another woman is trying to figure out how to leave a man who believes he owns her. What are you going to do about it?